The sun has been shining here in Wales for a few days now, so I've got my sun hat on to tell you how my old-fashioned mother used to save money on summer holidays. Now, when I was a child, my parents were very old-fashioned. We didn't have loads of money. They'd both been teenagers during the Second World War, and they'd both been brought up by elderly people because of circumstances. So they were very old-fashioned, and a lot of the things they did were probably out of date for those times. But this is what they did, this is what they believed, and this is what we did in our family, but also I know in a few of my friends' families as well. Now, everyone likes to go on holiday in the summer, but summer holidays when I was a kid were actually different to what most people think of summer holidays now. A lot of people nowadays, it has to involve going abroad, or it has to involve quite a lot of money, or going somewhere with your own room and ensuite and facilities. Well, when I was a child, that didn't happen very much. So this is what we did. Now, the first thing was we lived in the countryside. My nana, my dad's mum, lived near London, and she lived with her youngest daughter who had never left home. She'd stayed there because by the time she got married, Nana was getting on in years, and she stayed in the house and basically looked after my Nana until the end. So her and her husband and her children lived with my Nana. So when my dad used to visit her, which wasn't every year, but a few years, every sort of other year really, we would go and visit my Nana in the city. Now, that was a great adventure, and that was also classed as our holiday. We would go and visit my Nana, and then obviously be my dad, my mum, sometimes my brother and sister as well, but there was quite a big age gap between me and my brother and sister, so they were a bit older. So sometimes they came, sometimes they didn't. But I remember it was always quite exciting for me as a child. Like they used to be they would make up beds for the children, because obviously the grown-ups would need a bed. So I think all the children, the boys, my auntie's children, would have to give up their beds for my mum and dad. And then as children would be like made up beds on the floor, on like lilos or cushions or all this sort of thing. And it was just like camping inside. Like these days everybody seems to want their own room with an ensuite and all this stuff, and it's so we everyone just made do then. I say my parents would be in the children's room, we would be on the floor, perhaps in the living room or something, feeling like we were camping on these cushions. And it used to be really exciting for me as a child, because obviously there was different toys in there and different stories for bedtime stories, because it was somebody else's house. And we used to go off, there was a big swing park close by, and it was quite a big adventure to go there, even though it was not class, people these days probably wouldn't class as a holiday, but for us it was. And my dad would take us to this big swing park and perhaps buy us an ice cream, and I'd be there playing with my cousins, and we'd go on the swings and stuff. And also it was different toys, which is always, as a child, it's great going to someone else's house and having something different to play with. And I do remember back in the day when I was a kid, the Bionic Woman was a big hit on the television back in the 70s. And I had a Bionic Woman doll. And my cousin, who lived with my Nana, he had the Bionic Man version. So I took my Bionic Woman, and we had these fantastic time with all these games with the Bionic Man, the Bionic Woman, and it was great. And we just went to the park. My Nana would cook obviously a big dinner for us the one day, and she made the most amazing Yorkshire puddings, and I remember it fondly. It was really good fun, and that was our holiday. Now I remember it happened the other way around. Another year, Auntie Betty brought Nana and her children and her husband, they came to visit us at our house. So they came from the city to the country. And again, there was a big change around in bedrooms. My brother was in his late teens then, and I'm pretty sure him and my dad put a tent up outside and they camped outside so that Nana had my brother's bed, because obviously Nana had to have a bed. And then I think my aunt and uncle went in my parents' room. My mum came in with me because obviously I was very young, so she could still, so that was still acceptable, and she just came in. So she either had my bed and I was on the floor on cushions. I think that's what happened actually. Or I went in with my sister. I think one of those two, I can't remember. It's a long time ago now. So I either had cushions on the floor or I popped in with I have an older sister and we shared a bed, and my mum had my bed. There was none of this having to everyone had to have their own room with an ensuite or anything posh. And we just did fun things that were free, basically. I think we've got had a local swing park where I lived, and there was some nice walks around, and so we just did that sort of thing, and we just played. Again, the boys and my cousins were excited because there was different toys at my house. We had a big farm set there, so we did that and stuff. So that was what we did. It was visiting relations. When I got a little bit older, and we'd actually moved house at that point, and we lived near one of my mum's uncles, who was obviously my great uncle, and he was almost a bit like a grandfather to me, and he lived on a bit of a small holding. And when I was older, so that I was old enough to stay there by myself, in the summer holidays, I would go there for a couple of days, and that would be my holiday. My parents weren't big on holidays. They didn't feel the need to go on holiday every year or anything, probably because during the war years it was like holidays at home, more day trips, that sort of thing. And but obviously it was a thing to sort of go off and visit people. So my mum would come visit her uncle, leave me there with my little bag or suitcase or whatever I had for a few days, and I thought it was great because he lived on this small holding and they had chickens, and I used to go and collect the eggs, and we used to go for walks with their dog. They had a little dog, and I remember my uncle used to pick honeysuckle for me from the fields, and I still love honeysuckle, and we used to go and look at the sheep and this sort of thing, and we'd play in the hayloft, because there was sort of distant relations there that lived around there too, and there was kids roughly my age too, so we used to go off and do stuff. I mean, it was just great fun. We were just outside, and yeah, there was some real old-fashioned prams, I remember, in the barn, and I was allowed to clean one up, and I pushed my dolls around in this pram, and it was great, but it didn't cost my mum a penny. Now, I do know that some of my friends did the same. When you'd ask them what they were doing for the summer, they would go, oh, I'm visiting my auntie, or I'm visiting my uncle, and they would go, their mums and dads would stay, their dads usually working, the mums would stay behind, and the children, once they got to a certain age, would go and stay with their aunties. And then some of my friends, sometimes in the summer holidays, they'd have their cousins with them, and so I used to go around, say, to play with my best friend, and she'd go, oh, this is my cousin so and so, she's staying with us for a few days, and then when they took her back, she'd stay with her auntie. And people did that. I think staying with relations was a big thing when I was a kid, and that was classed as your holiday, and that's what we did. So that was what my mum certainly did. It sent me off to my uncle's, but I had a great time. My great uncle, he was a lovely bloke, and he was actually, by the by, random bit of information, bless him, but he had trouble with his eyes, and it was because from the age of 12, it was either 12 or 13, he was working at the North Wales coal pits. So there we are, with my grandfather. So there we go. That's a bit of random information, but he was a lovely bloke, my uncle. And the other thing we used to do sometimes when I was a kid, if we weren't visiting relations and we had like a family holiday, we used to go camping. Now, camping can save you an awful lot of money. It did when I was a kid, and it did, we used to take our children camping because the money was so different. Now, just briefly, I'll tell you when I was a kid, and then I'll tell you some statistics about when I took my children. Just, it might shock you the difference in the price. But we had a couple of tents when I was a kid, and we used to go off to a caravan camping park and just camp there And we used to have 2 tents then, because my brother was a bit older, my sister, they sometimes used to be camping separately, or so that there was enough room for everybody. We didn't have a tent that everybody could fit into. We had a bigger tent and a smaller tent, and people would fluctuate round however it worked best. And we used to go off and we used to go to the seaside and we go for a few days. But I don't remember ever doing major things like fun fairs, zoos, all that sort of thing. We basically did the beach. We did the beach and we did crab fishing, where you put like a line over the on the do you know, my words have gone. We used to sit with the boats on the harbour wall, and you could put a bit of bread on a bit of string and hang it over, and you used to catch these little crabs, and you used to put them in a bucket and count how many you got, and then you used to ship them back. And we used to do that. The most exciting thing I ever did was one place I used to go to was they used to have this track. You could go and hire a bicycle, just a normal bicycle, not with a motor, nothing technical. It was just a bike. They didn't even have gears on them in those days, and you didn't have to wear a helmet, but it actually had a track, loads of people, so you could hire a bicycle for half an hour or an hour, whatever, and it's all children, and you could just ride round and round around this track. And I can remember doing that. That was holiday fun then. And also there was these things called the laughing policeman, and it was like puppets in a box, and they'd be on the seafront and stuff, and you could put money in it, and the policeman, it was like a puppet with strings, and he'd dance and play the song, the laughing policeman. Yeah, simple but happy times. So we do mainly the beach stuff. We didn't do a lot of, there wasn't a lot of stuff if it was raining. We would sit in the evenings and do board games and stuff in the tent, and card games and dominoes and things like that. And usually, to be honest, we'd done that much walking and playing on the beach, we were pretty shattered. So we used to just go to sleep and stuff. But so camping was a cheap holiday for us when I was a kid. I have been in a caravan as well when I was a child. Caravanning then was different now, because you didn't have toilets or anything in the caravan. You had to go down to the shower block. And I think we had a small caravan and a tent, so that it kept the cost down a bit, but we could all go on holiday together. Now, I found with my children, I had 5 children altogether, and going on in a caravan in the school summer holidays, and I wanted to go to a holiday park. This is years ago. I wanted to go to a holiday park with all the kids' activities and a swimming pool and all that sort of thing. And we looked at the price the one year, and it was going to cost £1,000 for a week in the summer holidays. And we went, that's not going to happen. We just cannot afford that. So we looked into buying a tent, because just about the same time down the road they'd had like what do you call it, where they put lots of tents up, and you could go and have it, like, to sell them, and you could go and have a look around all these different tents and things. So we had a look at some tents, and we thought, oh, maybe we'll get a tent. So we got one online that was obviously cheaper than on the open day, but it just gave us some ideas. We bought a tent, I think it was about £350. And then we looked at the same week going to the same holiday park, and you've still got all the use of all the same facilities, the children's clubs, the entertainment, the swimming pool, the soft play, everything for the same week was £100. So that was a big difference for £1,000 in a caravan, £100 if you took your own tent. And even with buying the tent that year, it was still half the price of going in a caravan. And we had that tent for years. And we used to go and take the children, because, as I say, apart from, it is a bit of a trek in the night, go to the toilet. I could bore you with loads of hilarious stories of us going camping. It was we certainly got memories, and we've certainly got things to talk about, but it was a fraction of the cost of doing anything else. So we went camping for years and years and years. Our beloved tent, in the end, years later, in a massive storm in Barmouth, got taken out and ripped, and it was, yeah, we lost it, bless it, but it had very happy memories, that tent. So we did a lot of tenting, and also we did a lot of free activities with our children, like I'd done as a child. We always used to go and visit a lifeboat station, which I always did as a child. My dad always took me because it was lovely to go and look at the boat, and it's usually free, and you have a walk round and look at everything, and I find that fascinating. And I've done that with all my children, and so we always go to a lifeboat station, or we look and see if there's any museums or anything like that. You know, if it's a wet day, if it's a dry day, we just do the beach and the sea, the sand, that sort of thing. And so that kept the cost down an awful lot. So that is some of the ideas that happened many years ago. Don't feel that you have to just go on a standard holiday. Think outside the box and think of possibly spending more time with family and loved ones and just doing some activities with them to keep the cost down. I still cherish the memories that I have of spending time with my nana and my cousins and my dear old great uncle. I was very fond of him, and it was such good fun. And the camping memories I have with my children are hilarious, and I will treasure them forever. And it was a fraction of the budget that it would cost to do other things, but the memories, they're priceless. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that gave you some inspiration and some ideas to do your own holidays on a budget. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay frugal.